their response?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, it's important to appreciate that Niger Republic is a signatory to Ecowas protocol, which establishes democracy as a principal government, supportable and sustainable in the region. So, Niger Republic, like other members of ECOWAS, are bound to respect the principles of democracy. I think sometimes we misunderstand the issue, really. We keep talking about Niger Republic and Nigeria and so on and so on, but the principal issue is the right of the people to constitute government over themselves. That's the principle that democracy establishes. And that is the principle that ECOWAS protocol establishes as sustainable, the right of the people to constitute government. In other words, where a dictator, so to say, simply takes over government, it defeats that protocol. Now, it's also essential to understand that even in monolithic governments, as against pluralistic democracies, the right of the people to constitute government over themselves is still respected. For example, you take China or Russia or any of the monolithic governments, they still have to surrender to the will of the people to constitute government. Now, a dictator defeats all of that.
Indeed.
Because it is a self-imposed government over equal citizens in defeat of the rights of the people. Now, it is precisely because of that that international law recognizes what is called just war and unjust war. Okay. And it is important also to appreciate that there's a difference between a war for the purposes of establishing democracy and a war for the purposes of enforcing democracy. A war for the purposes of establishing democracy, for example, if you go into a nation and you want to establish democracy as against the existing political order, that will be considered an unjust war. Professor, I think, Michael Walzer, a political theorist, has discussed it and is adopted generally in the world. If, on the other hand, you go to a nation for the purposes of enforcing democracy, it is considered just war because it is protective of the rights of the people to constitute government over them and to sustain their fundamental rights. So the discussion should be tailored along rationality and acceptable norms of international law and political rights of citizens. It is not a question of, oh, we are going to war, to wage war. No, that is not the issue. The issue is, if you are committed to a certain treaties, you are bound by it. It's just like we send our troops to UN peacekeeping. Now, the reason we have to do that, we are bound to do that, is basically because we are committed to the UN, we are members of UN, assembly. So it should be understood from that. It's not a personal agenda of President Tinubu.
It just so yes. happens that, as is well known, he's a long-standing Democrat in the sense that he's always professed democracy way before he came into Abuja, as it were.
Yes.
And so he took the opportunity, as you know, upon assuming the chair of ECOWAS, to voice that out again. Of course, nothing had happened at the time.
Yes.
So when you now, those that are looking at it and don't have the benefit of the explanation you've just given, tended to sort of, as it were, put a lot of it on his doorstep, so to speak, especially as Nigerians in the north especially, not exclusively, but in the north especially, We're saying that, perhaps that was a bit hasty. We have our own problems, and have you solved our own problems before you start going elsewhere, and all that kind of thing. But I suppose, as you've just said, Dr. Bayomi, ECOWAS is a body, even though critics have said that when there were other coups, did they go this far? But now it is Niger, and you are going as far as this, which some people, they've brought up extreme. Well, I don't know. One has to be very careful not to call it extraneous in a dismissive way. But because there's this relationship between a lot of our citizens and that of Niger, especially in the 7 states up north, they've taken it personally.
Well, it must be appreciated that most other West African countries are even more concerned with Niger Republic, coup there, and other areas. Understandably, because of the closeness of Niger Republic to Nigeria. And the anxiety is that if peradventure, God forbid, that the madness should come to Nigeria, then the entire West Africa is in trouble. If we read in this morning, the chief of army staff said that there were people that was trying to instigate military takeover,
Indeed.
Dictatorship in this country.
Indeed.
Now, in Nigeria, let's look at the history. We began the process of dictatorship in 1966, Agoye Ironsi. Then it went to Gowon, 1966 to, I think Gowon then was there to 75. Then he was overthrown by Murtala Mohammed, 75 to 76. Obasanjo came in, 76 to 79. We have an interregnum, Shagari. They usurped government again, Buhari, 83 to 85. Then Babangida came in, 85 to 93. Then after Babangida, Abacha, 93 to 98. Then Abdul Salami. In other words, we spent over 30 years in the struggle. And what is a military dictatorship other than a ruffian? It doesn't respect laws. It doesn't respect citizens. It's not controlled. It's an unlimited government.
Not controlled by law.
It's not controlled by law. And the more fundamental tragedy is that all these changes are killings by military itself, killing itself. If we look at Burkina Faso, last year alone we have 2 coups in Burkina Faso. So the concern to Niger Republic is actually to stop the madness. Because if we don't stop the madness, where does it end?
Yeah. So the concern of ECOWAS.
Yes, the concern of ECOWAS is to stop the madness. And let us understand, it's fundamental to understand that it is not the concern about government, about the right of the people to constitute government over themselves. And the tragedy of absence, destruction of liberty of the people. I joined the struggle for democracy personally when I saw an army officer whipping a woman in Agege market, Agege bus stop market, with horse whip, whipping a woman recklessly.
There were all sorts of things.
And there was no control.
No
limit. They don't have any limit. They behave anyhow, whether with regard to the resources of the people, the liberty of the people, and so on and so forth. And it will bring total disorder. Now, we are already in problems, facing the challenges of leadership, development, and so on and political in our country. Now, if this country, if we leave it, and this madness becomes an epidemic, prevention is better than cure. So the entire West Africa is more concerned, not necessarily, it's more concerned about Nigeria than even about themselves, because they know the implication. So when people are talking about placing the something on, the pressure is on him, on the president, by the entire West Africa, that look, we cannot continue this. How long are we going to continue? One captain will just wake up and take a gun. You know, if we wait for another few years, another captain will wake up and take a gun. And so on. How long are we going to do that?
Indeed. I'll tell you what, Dr. Bayame, I've got to go on a quick break now, but we'll be right back, continue this conversation. There are some other questions I wanted to ask, and also take calls from home. Stay with us, please.
I miss them.
Well, they should be on their way by now.
Will it feel like it used to? With everyone so busy these days.
It will be fine.
Suddenly, she passes right. Oh, yeah, line up. Single file.
Grandpa, what was Grandma like?
She always found ways to bring us all together.
Devon Kings, taste that brings us all together.
On my dark marks, I've tried everything. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Okay, welcome back. And if you're just joining us, our guest is Dr. Tunji Abayomi, constitutional lawyer and diplomatic affairs analyst. And we're looking at the Niger coup. West African bloc activates a standby force for possible deployment. And the good news now is that the leaders of the coup in Niger are now they're now disposed towards dialogue, because Ecowas has said that not one of those conditions that they spoke about at the beginning is taken off the table. Now, from the point of view of the coupists, you know, this is going to be a very, very hard one for them to swallow, because Ecowas is demanding the reinstatement of President
Bazoum.
Bazoum, yes,
Bazoum.
yes, yeah, Bazoum, and his family, in good health and without anything happening to them. So it was quite, you know, gratifying to note to hear that now they are ready, you know, for dialogue. Remember, even though ECOWAS had, you know, expressed their gratitude to President Tinubu's emissaries that had gone there, they weren't as accommodating and respectful as they could have been, because one hears, without knowing the actual details, that it was difficult, if at all possible, to get to see any of the leaders. But, you know, that was disrespectful in diplomatic terms, I imagine. But I think the president was just, our president, was just exploring all sorts of options. Even though he's the chairman of ECOWAS and they have said the last resort would be the deployment of force, but he was still agreeing that other emissaries should try. And it looks like some got through to them and brought back the news, some religious leaders, because it now shifted away from politics, perhaps, you know. They now started sending spiritual leaders, and they got better results from that. How they are going to engage them, I don't know yet, but at least they have brought back the message that the people in Niger who have overthrown the government are now ready to talk.
Well, naturally, first and foremost, ECOWAS did everything to persuade the dictatorship to think, to return to common sense. I mean, I do not understand. I have listened to some analysts on television condemning Tinubu. First of all, Tinubu is not in this capacity acting as the president of Nigeria. And I agree with the president of Cote d'Ivoire. It's not an issue between Nigeria and Niger Republic. Definitely not. He's acting as the head of ECOWAS. But he has gone beyond the call of duty. First of all, he sent a former head of state of this nation and the leading spiritual leader for the Muslims.
That's right.
The Sultan of Sokoto and others to Niger Republic. I mean, with due respect, the government, and it shows you the type of government, military government, does not even have the courtesy to give them attention. I mean, if the head of state is sent to America, another president sends a team of that nature, even to America, it will be given regard. But in this, you know, like I said, basically a dictator is no more than just a ruffian. Did not even give them the recognition, did not receive them. And that's the second team that will go to Niger Republic. Let us also remember that it is not just Ecowas alone that is calling for restoration of democracy and constitutionalism, because the taking over is actually a crime under the Niger Republic Constitution. Taking over by is considered a crime. The United Nations Secretary General Guterres called for restoration of constitutionalism. So it's important to understand that we face a major challenge to entire West Africa. And Nigeria, as the president of Ecowas, the head of Ecowas, and as also the most important nation that actually, in a sense, defines the regard for the entire region, cannot just keep quiet.
You know, in the midst of all of this, there was a lot of talk that when it comes to international affairs and diplomacy and all of that, it's not just Niger Republic. Yes. Also, people were talking about the interest of France, yes, of maybe Germany, of the U.S. There was even a time when the coupists had said that France had flown a plane over their territory, which was provocative. Yeah. France denied it. So this thing was beginning to go. We even heard at a certain time that they might, you know, get the nod of Russia and get some of those soldiers in, some of those mercenaries in. All of those, it was quite worrying at the time. But it would appear that everything has now settled down a bit, especially with the last word from the coupists that we will talk now. But I wanted to ask, we got to this stage. Does it matter, the complication of, some have called them rented crowds, a lot of people that came out in support of the coup, the ordinary citizens you were talking about earlier?
But some people supported the coup, but there are other people
who don't.
Who don't. Who also, there's a lot of, there's a group that is called Council for Resistance for the Republic.
Yes.
CRR, Council for the Resistance of the Republic, that are also demonstrating against the coup and insisting on constitutionalism. So now there are people that are demonstrating, just like in any nation, you see a lot of crowd. I mean, we have elections in this country, and we have a lot of crowd, all sorts of things, from those who lose us in the election, saying all sorts of things. But they have their right to go to tribunal, make their case, and so on and so forth. The point is that orderly government must respect the rule of law and constitutionalism. And so all this issue about France and so on and so forth, how well have the leaders of African leaders in these countries done? How well have they performed? How well have they done? But the mere fact that we have challenges, does that mean that dictatorship is the result of the solution? In our country here, how well has dictatorship, what has it done, how well has it performed in terms of giving us good government, giving us peace, giving us development in this country? When we had a lot of money, when this nation had a lot of money, And it should have developed the same way that Dubai developed the wealth of oil. What was it? Was it not wasted?
Indeed.
Was it not tampered with? Did we not see billions and billions of dollars embezzled by uncontrolled, illimitable government, military government?
What do you expect now? Because the demand of ECOWAS, I think the most important is a return to constitutionality.
Yes.
And in particular, in this very regard, President Bazoum must be reinstated in power. Now, we will understand that. How well do you expect that to work?
Well, it will work if the people insist. They have said if they don't, they're going to.
The matter is not over.
Yes, that's it.
That, the matter is not over.
That is it. The principle needs to be established that once the people, by their constitution, establishes government, it has to be respected. That's why I said there's a difference between what is called just war, to enforce the rights of the people by way of democracy, and unjust war, to want to establish democracy. The truth of the matter today, all over the world, as a universal principle, it is accepted that you just war for the purposes of enforcing the rights of the people to constitute government over themselves. It's an acceptable war.
Okay. All right. One moment. Good morning, Mr. George, and thank you for holding on. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning.
Good morning to the guest.
Yeah, Dr. Abayomi.
Dr. Abayomi. Uncle Yori, while I am happy in the development that the coup plotters are now talking or willing to talk, I insist that the president should be reinstated, because whoever is coming to the streets now to demonstrate that they are in charge, they were the same people that elected him. So they should, if they don't want him again, they should vote him out. That is what democracy entails. Yes. If you allow the coupists to remain there inside, they may tell you 6 months, 1 year, they will be there for the next 10 years. That's how they do it. But what you can see, Uncle Yori, what I was saying the other day, that this subject matter is taking center stage in Nigeria. We don't want that. We have a country to fix. Yes. We don't want another country to come and dominate our affairs while we are busy solving their problems. Let the ECOWAS take this matter beyond ECOWAS. If I were the leadership of ECOWAS, you take it to African Union and let it become a rule. Any country in the continent that decides to overthrow a constitutionally elected government should be dealt with and excluded from membership of the, and then severe sanctions should follow. That is the way to go.
Indeed.
These guys should not be allowed to remain there or just be doing what they like, because if you don't do anything, others will follow the same suit. But not in a war, not in the form of a war. That's the way I see it.
Indeed. Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. Not in the form of the war. Well, that will depend very much on the coupists over there. If they, I don't want to, I mean, if they behave satisfactorily in the eyes of ECOWAS and the AU, and for that matter, in the eyes of the world, but the broad principles are clear. But working it out now, how does this kind of a thing usually go? It's like, can they be told to leave as soon as possible? And as soon as possible, as Mr. George was just insinuating there.
Because in a sense, they are actually, I mean, we're talking of war. They are the people that are declaring war. The military coup is a declaration of war on the people. A declaration of war is when you take arms to overwhelm an elected government. That's the first declaration of war. Let us also understand that ECOWAS has given them the option. Either you walk in the path of constitutionalism and peace, or you walk in the path, or you take the option of war. If they decide to take the option of war, that's not the decision of ECOWAS. That's their decision.
So it's up
ECOWAS has not declared war.
They have.
You know, they have, because it gave them the option. So if they now decide on the option of war when they have the option of peace and they abandon that. You cannot hold ECOWAS
responsible. Okay. Mr. Adesanya, good morning to you. Thank you for calling in.
Yes, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in. Good morning, sir.
But I really love this program, but I have a different opinion.
Okay, let's hear it.
Today. And my opinion is that if you look at Bazoum has been there since 2010 or 2011. And to me, that is not democracy. What I would have loved ECOWAS to do is that, okay, fine, they should release him, but they should now conduct a fresh election. I'm sorry, that is just my opinion. Because if we want democracy to thrive in Africa, that is the best way to do. Because we cannot just be there since 2010 or 2011. For what? And we call that democracy. Let them release him, but for him to be back there, we have to say the obvious. Because the obvious is that you cannot expect the military to put him back and the military will still be in that country. It is not possible. Let them release him, but another democratically elected president should come back to power. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Adesanya. I'm going to come back and ask what you think about that notion, but let me quickly take a break so we won't be interrupted. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back.
I miss them.
Well, they should be on their way by now.
Will it feel like it used to? With everyone so busy these days.
It will be fine.
Suddenly, she passes right.
Oh, yeah, line up. Single file.
Grandpa, what was Grandma like?
She always found ways to bring us all together.
Devon Kings, taste that brings us all together.
Okay, welcome back. Our guest is still Dr. Tunji Abayomi, constitutional lawyer and international affairs analyst. And we're looking at developments in the whole Niger Republic coup. And it looks like we're coming out of the rain, so to speak. We're getting much more positive feedbacks. The leaders of the coup have said that, yep, they're sorry, first of all, for the seeming disrespect with which they treated earlier emissaries of the president of Nigeria, but equally, if not more importantly, yeah, we're now ready to talk. Now, Mr. Adesanya, calling in from Abuja, he proposed an option, and I wonder what you think about the option that maybe the thing to do is to, say, okay, we'll release President Bazoum, but there has to be an election, and, I wonder, are they in any position? I know that it's a negotiating thing, but are they in a position to be calling shots given the stance of ECOWAS already?
Well, the ECOWAS, there can be a compromise. ECOWAS should not be rigid and immutable in the circumstances on the ground. And I also don't think the military coups should also be rigid. Obviously, they face a very difficult situation. There can be a compromise of a new election, a free and fair election. If Bazoum is elected again, he has a right to run like any other citizen. Obviously, we will have to respect it.
That is, if that idea that Mr. Adesanya just presented to us, if it is agreeable to ECOWAS.
If it is agreeable to ECOWAS, but you cannot say that a citizen, because he's been there, cannot run again. It depends on the constitution of nations. I mean, Putin has been there. They are all rushing to Putin in Russia.
Yes, exactly.
Putin has been there all these years, and I don't think he's looking at a tenure that will end his reign, and so on and so forth. In China, it is renewable after a number of years, but it can be renewed continually until death. You understand what I mean? It depends on the constitution of a nation as to whether, and if the people, look, let us appreciate something. I think it was Nkrumah who said the people have a right to govern or misgovern themselves. by their election of their leader. If, for example, decide to elect a bad leader, that's their right. If they decide to elect a good leader, that's their right. But the fundamental benefit of democracy is that they will have another chance to defeat an elected leader who has not done well. And that is why Kant, Immanuel Kant, the philosopher, the Enlightenment philosopher, said, compared to any government, whether it is plutocracy, monarchy, and any form of government, democracy still guarantees peaceful leadership, peaceful community, development, and security of rights. Democracy is still the better form of government. Indeed. Because it is the right of the people to constitute government over them.
That's quite frankly a universal principle, virtually. Fumi has called in from Agodo. Good morning to you, sir or ma'am? I'm not sure.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. It's a lady. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good
morning.
And I thank him for his perspective.
Yes.
I've known him for some years as an activist. Yes. Now, the point I want to make, I feel proud as a Nigerian that Nigeria did what she should do. Yes. That the coup plotters are now ready to talk because the heat is on them. Yes. Nigeria played a very important role in this Ecowas meeting. And it is the role that we have played that has brought those guys to their knees to now talk with us. You can imagine the humiliation they did to the Sultan and our former head of state that went there. But now I think they now know that there's a limit to which they can go, in dealing with Nigeria. So I feel proud as a Nigerian. I am happy that things are now taking the shape of dialogue. But let people be educated that the fact that ECOWAS cannot go and dictate how many terms a president can have in another country. No. Each country is guided by its own constitution. But we can't have a broad perspective that say no to coups. Honestly, if I had my way, I think that the protocol, free movement of ECOWAS ought to have been suspended long ago because of security challenges that we are having. A lot of these people coming to banditry, killing farmers and all this, they are from outside Nigeria. So maybe this will also make our leaders also to erect proper borders and protect our territorial integrity. Once again, my Uncle Yori, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
you very much for calling in. Indeed.
We're also proud of you, madam.
Indeed. What she said there, I sort of took hold of that, look, it doesn't matter what you think of their constitution.
Yes.
That's their business.
Yes.
So this has to be read by Nigeria, nay, ECOWAS, from the point of view of the Nigerian constitution.
Yes.
So it might not fit with ours,
yes,
but sorry, whatever has been provided for in the ECOWAS constitution is what is now going to be the law that the ECOWAS will be operating against or from.
Yeah, one of these, I think the earlier speaker spoke about excluding all these coups. That has been the principle, that has been the position, both at African Union as well as ECOWAS. Once you usurp government, you are excluded, you become a pariah. That's the position.
Indeed.
Indeed. And that's actually the position in the world. For example, do you see any leader who usurp going to United Nations? They cannot go to the United Nations. They are excluded, automatically excluded. And it is again, emphatically needs to be stated that it is based on the principle that the people have a right, the citizens have a right to constitute government over them. Government is already powerful. When you make yourself government, you make your government over the people. Then what is the liberty? What is the right of the people? You understand what I mean?
One moment, Dr. Abayomi. Ada in Jos, good morning.
Yes, Ada in Jos, Ada calling from Jos, Plateau State.
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Yura. Good morning to Dr. Tunji Abayomi.
Yeah, morning.
I've listened to him keenly. When he was talking about the coup happening in Niger, that is a crime against whatever. When it happened in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and Guinea, and the rest of them, it's not a crime. Anyway, let me just leave it there. Now, what I want to say here is that the coup is now, they've agreed to dialogue. I saw it coming, and it's after the ulamas and the emirs elect them, and then the sanctions too. It's about 19 days soon or so. And they'll be feeling the heat. After some time now, if they don't allow dialogue with Ecowas, the population, that is the masses, might start revolting too, unless they want to kill all of them, because they are feeling it too. They have families. So all I want to say here is that we have a serious problem in Africa, or even West Africa, whatever. This kind of sit-tight kind of governance, or whatever it's called.
Okay.
Then we have to also check this issue of ballot coup. Ballot coup is rearing its ugly head in Africa now. We have to check that too. It's not just the army coming in. Then they also have to have good governance. What happened in Niger should be an eye-opener to any government. Why people are talking about it in terms of Tinubu, it's not a Tinubu affair. But because he's a Democrat, he doesn't want it he wants something to be respected under his own thing. But we also have to take care of ballot coups. That's what I'm trying to say. All the same, let's not give up on Nigeria. Okay, it gets better.
Thank you very much for calling in, Ada Unjust. And Ada seemed a bit, I just detected that from the tone of her voice, that are there double standards when the coup happened in, Burkina Faso and those places that you mentioned? We didn't get this kind of a reaction. But now that it's Niger, it's okay. I think
the reaction was just as profound, but the situation is a little different. In the case of the Niger Republic, there was a government in place. There was some level of stability. In Mali, it was threatened. The nation was almost taken over by Islamists. We face different situation. Notwithstanding, there was a lot of condemnation of it, and they are excluded from the Ecowas conference. So are they excluded also from OAU and, of course, from UN, and so on and so forth. But the point is that here, at a point, a decision must be taken that this must stop. And the madness of all of this, in my view, is the fact that, okay, you took over government. You take Niger Republic. So you now constitute a cabinet of civilians. You now give the government prime minister and a civilian, and so on and so forth. Or a military government. You take over government, eventually you return government to civilians. So what's the essence of taking it over? If you cannot continue in power, and you are bound at a point by the demand of the people of that country at one point that you must hand over government to civilians. Why do you need to take over? You are doing that solely because of personal power. Indeed. No more than that.
And this is what ECOWAS cannot.
And this is what ECOWAS is saying. You cannot on your own make yourself the president of a country. Only the people have a right to constitute over themselves who they want to govern them. You cannot on your own make yourself the president of a country. That is the protocol of ECOWAS, and it states there that they can use military force to ensure democracy in ECOWAS sub-region. That is the position.
Indeed. And as you know, when the communique was read by the I think the president of ECOWAS, he was thankful to President Tinubu for the way he has conducted his affairs as the chairman. They thanked him, very much. And that in itself sort of speaks volume that there is no breaking of ranks in ECOWAS. I mean, we can't even afford it. Otherwise, constitutionality will break down. And commentators have said that you let that kind of a thing go in ECOWAS, you're merely encouraging the next guy to try it. But now that all the hullabaloo has been seen, that will indeed be facing any coupist, any country within our region that does that, I think people will now look at it differently. Now, the other thing that I heard people comment about in Nigeria, at least, I don't know what they were commenting about in other countries within our region. Nigeria was criticized for what was described as cutting off their power. Yes. Cutting off their power, and I don't know. What would be your comment on that? As you know, Nigeria
needed to even do more. The nature of military government, they are very stubborn, very irresponsible. And before they decide to take over government, you can imagine the determination in an elected government. If Nigeria didn't take very serious, they are not going to even respond.
That's right.
This is a government to which Nigeria, who is like the mother and father of Niger Republic, sent a team, a former head of state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the head of the Muslim community, almost in the entire Africa. They left their country to hold a meeting with a mere young officer who took over power illegally, unconstitutionally. And he did not even give them attention. He did not even say that. I'm not even sure they were able to go beyond the airport. And they waited and waited and kept on waiting. And they didn't see them. And they had to come back. That's the second team. The first team was a head of government of Benin Republic. He was the president of Benin Republic to see. And you expect the Ecowas to just tolerate that? If that kind of madman, if you allow him, he can lead military men into Nigeria.
So there was no question of, as the Yoruba would say, no ojuboro.
No,
it's not allowed.
You have to be very serious.
You have to be very, very firm.
If we are not firm, you're not going to get anywhere. Isn't now they want to talk? That's because Ecowas, instead of backing down, insists that all options are on the table. And if it does not discuss, they are going to use military power. And you can hear what the president of Ivory Coast, it has another name now. What the president said, that it is not something between Niger Republic. It is ECOWAS protocol.
Indeed.
And the respect for the rights of the citizens.
Larry in Ilorin, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning, you guests over there.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Bayomi.
Yes, please, my own take on this issue is about I believe in dialogue, and I think a dialogue will work for us very much better than the issue of war. Why I'm saying this is that majority of the populace in Africa are not enjoying democracy. Our leaders are not doing the needful to put things in order for us to enjoy democracy. As long as this continues, this type of thing will also continue. We are, as I'm calling, and you in the studio there, we are a bit comfortable. Majority of people are not comfortable at all. And they will welcome such things as long as the democratically elected people are not doing the right things. For example, Bazama has been there for a long time now. He is supposed to be there for his normal tenure. But at the end of the day, they will use some issues to now change their position to continue, which is even more greater than the coup that is happening now. So I just want our leaders, the African leaders, especially West African leaders, to do the needful so that the people, the masses, will be able to enjoy democracy. Otherwise, such thing will continue. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.
I think that's mere, I'm sorry, that's just mere reactionism. To say that the majority of people are not, you may say the majority of people in Africa are not enjoy sufficient benefits of democracy. There is poverty everywhere. I see people in America begging for food. America is a very wealthy country. There's poverty everywhere. And the history of Africa is not a history that you can just diminish and expect utopia early. We've gone through challenges in Africa. Challenges of enslavement, over 11 million people, when the wealth of nations depend on the strength and the energy of our citizens. This nation was made desolate. This African nation was made desolate by the West.
Indeed.
Then, after that, 11 million strong men and women were taken from Africa. Out of that, over 3 million were thrown on board.
So we've had our issues.
We had our issues.
People can't.
And then the colonization, all our wealth continued. And we are still suffering from that. And then the other issue is that I was telling one of my children just a few days ago, it's not like there's no development. I mean, simple things. We can look at the Yoruba saying, Katibi, Shanoki is Ogun. You look at mashes, you begin to know the power of medicine. I mean, in my state, Ondo State, today, we have 3 airlines servicing the state. Just a few years ago, we didn't. You understand what I mean? So, and all the airline is full. So there's the level of development may not be as advanced as we expect. Then finally, is the military given us anything better apart from the torture, corruption, impunity,
indeed,
and abnormal leadership? It hasn't given us anything better. And so if we are talking about democracy, yes, we can demand for better leadership. We have a chance to do that through many means, through election, through going to court, and so on and so forth. But we have nothing like that under a military rule.
Indeed, and that was the very point that Fumi made. That look, you can change, but not the way this has been changed. Yes. You got to change by the vote.
Yes.
Vote them out, yes. And that, quite frankly, is the civilized thing to do. Good morning, Mr. Yakub in Dokwemu.
Yeah, good morning, sir, and then good morning to Dr. Abayomi.
Yes, morning.
Sincerely, I totally agree with Fumi, and then I also agree with Dr. Abayomi, and then I consequently disagree with the last caller. Yes. Says that because democracy, the leadership that came in through the ballot paper had not delivered the democracy and dividend of democracy to the people. That's why the military take over. I totally disagree. It should tell me anywhere in West Africa that the military have taken over that's better than where the democracy exists. Exactly. Dr. Abayomi just said it now. The military, even before now, Dr. Abayomi is an activist. Before now, if it is military rule in this country, Chief Judge, I don't think I'll be able to call to a physics station and lay my voice against the government if they are not doing well. Because, so to say, if I should do so, they may be able to trace me and begin to threaten me that I say the truth. See, the democracy has come to stay, and then I totally agree with the West Africans because of what they took, that if you don't come to talk, we are going to use military against you. Who is in Niger? They cannot stand it with the heat. And then coming to cutting down their light and whatever. I think the Nigerian government needs to do more. Why am I saying that? We don't have agreement with the military government in Niger. We have agreement with the democracy in the Niger, not the military taking over. So we need to do more than that so that they will bring them to their knees to be able to negotiate with this country and then to negotiate with West Africa as a whole. And then some people in this country, they were like saying that our government should not go to war. It is not all about Nigerians. It is all about Ecowas, not Nigeria. Because if we shall allow this thing to stay,
indeed,
this guy may begin to muscle up and then begin to take over one by one. What are they talking about? We should make sure that they leave that place and then return the president back to the power. That is the truth. You can.
All right then, Yakub, thank you very much. And also thank you, Yakub, for coming back to that point that most well-meaning people have made consistently. It's not about Nigeria.
Yes.
It's not about Tinubu, president of Nigeria.
Yes.
It's about Ecowas,
yes.
And
yes.
that is a collective. I think there are 15 of them, 15 countries.
There are 15 presidents.
Yes, 15 presidents.
Who are there at that meeting.
Yeah, they spoke
that even in itself shows the regard they have for Nigeria. Mauritania, that was no longer in ECOWAS, rejoined ECOWAS. Burundi rejoined, and so on and so.
Indeed.
That shows that the centrality, the central importance to all these nations. How do you even expect to be respected in the world with that kind of nonsense? So, just one person will just take a gun, an oligarch will just usurp government. And, yes.
We can conclude with, ECOWAS means the best for not just our region, but also for Niger itself. If only they would.
And also to set the principle for the future.
Exactly. So
first principle for future government.
People now know
that the people must constitute government over them. Nobody can make himself the president, the head of government by arms. That is war on the people. That is the issue, and it will be resisted.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Abayomi, for making that point quite forcefully. There is no compromise on that point.
Yes.
You know. So we're going to leave it there, and I want to thank you very much. The Niger coup, West Africa bloc, activates standby force for possible intervention. Now, hopefully, that won't be necessary, and I guess that's what all well-meaning people of the African society want. We don't want a situation where African brothers, African countries will be going at each other. But there is no compromise. There is no option to democracy. Tinubu said that in his inauguration as the president, as the chair of Ecowas. There is no option. Whatever you say about it.
Nigeria must lead in this regard.
And I think that is what Nigeria has done so well.
In this regard.
And I think
that's why Nigeria must ensure that Africa is respected in the world.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Tunji Abayomi, constitutional lawyer and commentator on international affairs. So that's our program. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folari. Bye-bye for now.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. Do you spend the night trying to get comfortable? Your knees rub bone on bone. Your back and hips ache. You wake up in pain? Not anymore. ShopX TV is proud to introduce the Contour Legacy Pillow, the patented, ergonomically designed tapered leg pillow that naturally fits the contours of your legs, knees, and thighs to help align your spine and alleviate pain. Watch, when you sleep on your side, your leg falls forward, twisting your pelvis and lower back, putting pressure on your spine, hip, and sciatic. But the Contour Legacy Pillow cushions your knees and cradles your legs, relieving stress on joints while restoring your lower back alignment. Sleeping on your side, your leg comes over and puts you out of alignment, causing lower back pain, hip pain, even knee pain. By using the Contour Legacy Pillow, it restores the natural alignment of the spine, helping to alleviate pain and pressure, leading to much more restful sleep. Old-fashioned leg pillows are bulky, but the anatomical design of the Legacy Pillow fits perfectly the shape of your body the way nature